Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Welcome to the Blue Plate Special here in Orange Beach, Alabama, from Wisdom Harbor Studios at the Wharf. So, we're glad to see you. It's kind of a cloudy Thursday here in Orange Beach, but, you know, it's warm, so it's good. I say it's warm. I think it's warm for most of you. It's not really warm for us. It's like about 65. So 65, I think, is like where you really want your air conditioning in the heat of the summer. And, you know, I saw a quote the other day that I thought was very cool, and it was about the difference in the British and us. And you know, using artificial stuff to warm our houses, but it said that Americans, or that British warm their bodies, but Americans warm their homes, which I think is like a take on that. So many of the British homes are just, you know, there's old stuff over there, and it has a lot of older kind of piping or whatever. And if you've ever been to England, you know, you go in a lot of places, they just can't heat it. And so these people are wearing jackets and scarves and underclothes and all like that, where we kind of don't. You know, we walk around our home street. Hey, buddy. How are you?
Doing good. Can I set these on the floor?
Well, you can set them on the floor if you want to, or you can set them right here on the table.
I just didn't want to get them in the
Well, it doesn't matter.
camera.
What about you? Can get you in the camera?
No, I don't need that.
No. That was Austin, and he doesn't want to be on camera. So anyway, yeah, I got something I'm going to show you here in just a minute. For those of you on Facebook, we're glad to have you here. Please click that notification button and turn on the notifications on your phone. That way you'll be notified when we are live. And also, please share this. Please share to your friends and your neighbors, and even to people you don't know. Hey, Heather Olson. Good morning, afternoon to you. Marcy Crossell Taylor from snowy, cold Eastern Washington. We met a guy from Washington last week. Austin and I were duck hunting and met a kid named Bo from Washington State. And this kid, I want to have him on the podcast sometime, because this kid can call anything with his mouth. I mean, you know, where most people use a duck call or use a crow call or use whatever. I mean, this kid can he can just rah, rah, you know, it's incredible. Those of you on YouTube, please press that subscription button, and hey to Instagram, and also the Twitter team there, led, of course, by Brian Backen. Jerry Anderson, the game warden's here. I saw Judson Perkin flick by there. Edie Ward, love that theme song. Don't you love that? That is, you know, Sugarcane Jane. Clint Knowles, how you doing, buddy? How are you doing? Clint Cannolis. Sherry Cummins from Fort Worth, Texas. And Michelle Cromas, perfect weather. Where are you, Michelle? Where are you with your perfect weather? Can weather really be perfect? Will God really save the Queen? Does God really have a country? This, you know, you hear these kind of things. This is perfect weather. God save the Queen. Oh, this is God's country. So I always wonder those things. So Patrick Horner has two questions. How many pictures does Andy have? And what are you drinking? It looks like sawdust. Oh, how about that? That is very funny. It does kind of look like sawdust, doesn't it? Kay Arnson says it's 18 in North Dakota. Heather Olson says it's 36 in Utah. I was in a store. Hey, Gina Christmas. And Twinings has, you know, they're the tea people. And so they have this, obviously a lot of tea bags, but I don't know if this is like just marketing that got me. If it did, good for them. But they are. It's kind of like a water package, water bags, and you can get them with different flavors. And it wasn't some powder that you added. It's an actual bag. It's like a little bitty tea bag. And you always, or at least I always grew up thinking, okay, well, you got to boil water to make anything do something, to make a tea bag work. But these are little bitty tea bags, and you put in a bottle of water, and I like them. I like them. Now, I don't like but this is the ginger flavor. And so I like it. All right. And I figure if I drink more water, I am healthier, correct? Okay. Hey, I've got something I want to show you. And I also have, what do you think about my shirt? I love this shirt. Whether you see the back of the shirt, this is from Sand Dollar Lifestyles, which is right down here in the wharf, the cornerstone of the wharf. Sand Dollar Lifestyle has all these fabulous shirts, and I get to wear some of them, and so I'm very excited about them. Thank you, Jeff Hardy and Mike and that whole bunch there, Haley, Josh. It's a great crew, good people down there. So Edie Ward said ginger is so good for you. I always thought so too, but everybody else liked Mary Ann. But I'm with you. I think ginger. So, anyway, let's see. Did you know that when they started doing that show, the professor and Mary Ann, I mean, I couldn't tell that they were any less of a character than any of the other people. But when they started that show, they were and the rest. How would you like to have only a few characters on a show and they mention everybody else but you're and the rest? You two over there, we're not even mentioning you, you're and the rest. But the first season, if you listen, sit right back and you hear a tale of a fateful trip. Just started from this tropic port aboard this tiny ship. The mate was a mighty sailing man, the skipper brave and sure. 5 passengers set sail that day for a 3-hour tour. A 3-hour tour. The weather started getting rough, the tiny ship was tossed. If not for the courage of the fearless crew, the minnow would be lost. And, they keep going on. Is what is it? We got with Gilligan, the skipper too, the millionaire and his wife, the movie star, and the rest are here on Gilligan. I mean, we only got the Professor and Mary Ann, and you say and the rest. I mean, I don't know if they were upset about it, but by the next season, they were able to say the Professor and Mary Ann. So, anyway, just saying. What was I talking to you about? Oh, I'm going to tell you about my trade. You're going to love the story of my trade. And actually, and I don't know, I didn't ask, my board of directors here, my bosses, I didn't ask them if it was okay to trade 2 times between shows. But I figured that because we didn't do a Tuesday, we didn't do a Tuesday. We did last Thursday. We didn't do a Tuesday, that I could do 2 trades. Who is that watching from Donald and Evelyn Perry watching from Belleville, Ontario, Canada? And it's 3 centigrade. Do the math. That's 37 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not that cold. I mean, just because you're in Canada, I mean, you kind of make us think it's always cold up there. But Leonard Sanchez. Leonard from Green River, Wyoming. Now, I think most of you know that I am a font of odd facts known by few. So, Leonard, let me tell you something about Green River, Wyoming. You know the Dexter knives that you can find today, the white-handled Dexter knives? This was a company that was first the Green River Knife Company, all right? And it was actually made in Massachusetts or something, but the knife itself, the one that they had was a skinny knife. It was one that the trappers really used, okay? And so it had Green River written on that blade, all right? And so when they would get together for these chivaries, these things that all the trappers would come together and everybody would get wasted and they would, get their year's worth of money and then spend it all in the weekend and have to go trap again. It was evidently kind of crazy. But if anybody got in a knife fight and got stabbed to death, they called that he went up Green River, because the Green River's on the blaze up Green River. And but then it also later became known as a saying for something that was really good. That's up to Green River, meaning that's the best of its class. So anyway, but you're in Green River, Wyoming. Bet you didn't know that, huh? So Mark Stewart says, tell us something about Lubbock, Texas. Well, I know that if you, apparently, if you look up happiness in the dictionary, it says it's Lubbock in your rearview mirror. Remember the song? Right? I didn't mean to insult your town, but I guess I just did. Thus, happiness is Lubbock, Texas, in my rearview mirror. Who did that? Wayne Lacey watching from northern Idaho. Okay, let's get to it. I want to show you, these canvases, these Manners canvases are rolling in. I think this one, isn't that the Ole Miss version, Matt? That's Ole Miss. So there's Ole Miss right there. And so all these, we came up with this idea to do these things, but I want to tell you why we're doing them, and I want to tell you how you use them, okay? Because I think once people understand something, they'll understand why we did these, all right? So this one says, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, please, thank you. And then, in a competitive world, the child who becomes an adult with great manners has a distinct advantage over those whose manners are merely average. So that's George Kosser, Ole Miss Manners canvas. All right, so here's the thinking on this. If you talk to people, now you and I, we want the best lives for our children, right? We want our children, we're not trying to raise great kids. We're trying to raise kids who become great adults. That's two different things. That's two different pathways, all right? And so to raise a child to become a great adult, then somewhere along the line, that child has to understand things that an adult understands. Because, you can make a kid be a great kid. We can all have great kids, but, because we make them be a great kid because we're bigger than they are and we have all the money. And you will do this because you're in my house, because I'm your father, you will do this. We make them be great kids. But that's not the point of the exercise, really, because it's almost a cliche that we look at situations that happen, and we go, well, what happened? They were great kids. They were great kids. And then, two of them went and became neurosurgeons, and one of them's on death row in prison. What happened? And they were raised the same way. Well, somebody didn't understand something, somebody, and we can say it's the choices, okay? But below the choices is the thinking. There's a thinking that dictates your choices. And so I wondered for a long time, why is it? Because my family was not one of those families that generation after generation after generation passed down wisdom and wealth. I mean, if you look at my family tree, my family, every time a generation started, it was like, yeah, you're on your own. And everybody kind of had to start over. But I do know families. I started watching families and really beginning to study families where they did pass down wisdom and wealth for generations. And so I began to understand how that was done. But there was an anomaly that I couldn't figure. I knew several of these families that cared so much about people that they were giving, literally millions of dollars to causes to try to help people and try to get people, to in a situation where, and yet it didn't seem to work, okay? Because, all right, so, now, who says this? Jan Ritter. All right, so Jan Ritter says, I'm a Northerner. I didn't teach my kids, yes, ma'am, and sir, but I still have good kids. I'm sure you do. Now, but what I'm going to explain to you is something very different, something that you have never heard before. Or at least from anybody but me, and I don't think I have explained this out loud, and I'm writing now to try to explain this. But I watch these families, and I would say, there's tons of people that want to live like they live, right? They would like their families to have passed down wisdom and wealth that's growing. And all these kids wouldn't we like that? Well, and so then these families are given millions of dollars and spending time to try to, help people. And yet, if you ask, okay, will you be glad to tell them how you've done this with your kids? And they'd say, yeah, absolutely. And would you want your kids to turn out like this? Would you want your family generationally to be like this? And they say, yes. Okay, so why is it not happening? So here's why I think it's not happening. Even if you have great results, until you can explain why something works as it does, in the minds of everybody else, that's just your opinion. See, I hear a lot of grandparents say, they raised great kids, and their kids turned out great, and the kids turned into great adults. But I've heard a ton of grandparents say, our grandkids are just kind of out of control. We raised her this way, but she married him, and they have different ideas. And when I say anything about it, they say, well, Mom, that's just your opinion. And so at that point, that person who has just been told it's just your opinion, they kind of think, yeah, I guess it is. And they don't really know how to explain why they believe what they believe. And they don't have a reason. Remember when when somebody is going to change, right? When somebody is going to change, there's two things that have to be there: what's in it for them and proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the only thing I can find that those two things are present in every single change there ever is. And so when those two things are there, people change, all right? So if we explain these things as a kid or explain to a parent, because as a parent, you're wanting the best life for your children, right? But remember, it's just like almost a cliche. Yeah, they had 3 kids and 2 of them are doctors and 1 of them's in prison, and they raised them at the same dinner table. They raised them with the same rules. They treated them the same way. They gave them the same books. How did this happen? Well, so knowing that as parents, we want the very best life for our kids. And we know that at some point it's going to be out of our hands to a degree. But we also know that if we want to change people's minds, like if I want to change an adult's mind, I've got to have prepared what's in it for them and proof beyond a reasonable doubt, meaning that proof beyond a reasonable doubt means it just makes sense. And so when I talk manners to people, Jan, here's what I use. I will either use the yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir, or I'll use a hat on backwards explanation. Because you can kind of see that, and so let me use the hat on backwards, and you'll see what I mean about the yes ma'am, no ma'am. So if one guy looks at this family is just like, man, just increasing wisdom, wealth. There's generations. And this guy's like me, starting over every time. And this guy goes and says, man, I see how your family's turned out. I have a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old, both boys, and tell me something to do. What can I do to, you just tell me a bunch of things that I can do to have them turn out like your people turn out. Okay, so maybe this guy over here would say, well, let's see, here's one thing. One thing is, I saw your kids at the ballpark the other night, and they're great kids. But, just me, I just say, I wouldn't let them wear the hats backwards like that. I say, no hats on backwards. And this guy over here says, okay, why is that? The guy said, well, that's something my dad, probably my granddad too, really insisted on. And, that's just one of the things that we do, And the guy say, okay, well, like, is it a sin? And this guy say, well, no, it's not a sin. It's just, my granddad always thought that was just kind of it just wasn't a great look. It just looked kind of disrespectful. And so, we didn't ever wear hats back. Boy, we got caught wearing hats, And so now at this point, this guy go, well, I really need you to tell me stuff that, that's kind of, you said it's not a sin. So I need you to tell me, so that's just your opinion. I need you to tell me stuff that really does make a difference. Well, see, this guy kind of feels like that made a difference, but he didn't know why. He didn't know how to explain it to him. And this guy's looking and going, basically what people say to their parents when they're raising their kids is, Mom, Dad, that's just your opinion. Okay, so let's break this down. Let's think to the bottom of the pool on this. If we love our children and we want desperately the very best life for them, we know that life is about thinking and it's about choices, and because their thinking dictates our choices. And so if let's say that, because I've had this conversation with some dads, and what I say is, yeah, we don't really do the hat backwards thing. And they said, really? Why is that? And I said, well, I didn't really decide. That's just something, I kind of gave that chance or that choice to my boys. And they really decided not to because here's the kind of way I explained it. If you look at society today and just kind of take an overview of the entire population, and maybe you take 40-year-old people to 70-year-old people, which that's kind of the hiring and firing age. That's the influence age, and that's the age you try to get these people to write, letters of recommendation for you. You hope they have good things to say about it. Okay, so you take that bunch and you say, what percentage of those people do not like to see kids or people with their hat on backwards? What percentage? Well, I don't know what it is, but we all know there's some people they don't like it, Now get this. I'm not saying they're right. I am absolutely not saying they're right. Wearing your hat backwards, that's not a sin. It's not even wrong. Okay, it's just kind of, it's not right or wrong. Okay, but there are a certain percentage of people, adults, that they don't like that look. They think it looks like a punk look. They think it looks disrespectful. They don't like it. Again, I don't even know who they are. Okay, but let's just say there's 20% of them out there that kind of feel like that. All right? Now, what I would ask you is there a reason to wear your hat on backwards? Because if there's a reason to do it, then you need to think about that, take that into, because like if you have skin cancer on the back of your neck, you're trying to shade the back of your neck. Well, that's a reason. Okay, that's a reason. But if your reason is because, some celebrity did it or, the other guys are doing it, if that's your reason, it's never a great reason just because everybody's doing it. That's never a good reason. And so if you haven't got a good reason, then we have to look at what's the possible fallout. Okay, there are people that don't like this. Now, again, I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I am not saying they're right or wrong. But for a period of your life, you walk around with that hat backwards and you get to the point where you're about to go out into the world of corporate combat. You're about to go out into the world of opportunities and letters of recommendation and words being whispered behind your back about what kind of person you are, or somebody calling on, would you be a person for me? And they call and say, so tell me the truth. So they're about to enter into that world, and there's 20% of the people that kind of watched them grow up and they don't really like them. They don't know why they don't like them. They don't know why they feel weird about them. They don't like it. Okay, so that kid will go into the world of corporate combat with 80% of the people on his side, and he's going to be competing with a few kids that have 100% on their side. So if it's worth 80%, to take 80% or take 20% of that away from you, wear your hat wherever you want, And these are ways that I would explain to Austin and Adam, but these are the things, I saw it come up just a minute ago. Somebody said the hat at the table. Right. That's one of those things. I mean, you go in any restaurant, you go in any Cracker Barrel, go in any place you want to go, and you see people wearing hats at the table inside. Okay. Do you know somebody that doesn't like that? I do. I do. My wife being one of them. Okay. Now, I'll give you this. That's not one I really thought about a whole bunch. Okay. But that falls into the category of yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. Is it necessary? No. I mean, is it required? If you don't do it, is it a sin? No. Are there a certain group of people, and it's not a regional thing anymore? You know, somebody would say, well, that's a regional thing. No, not anymore. I mean, I know you said you're from the north, okay, but that's not a regional thing anymore, because we all know people from Georgia who live in New York. We all know people from, who grew up in Mississippi who live in Chicago. We all know people who played for the University of Alabama football, and they live in Chicago. I talked to Johnny Musso last night, I'm just telling you. But the thing is that if you say yes, sir, yes, ma'am, nobody is ever offended by this. Okay, nobody's offended by it. But there could be people that they are kind of offended when a kid says, yeah, or yes. Okay? And only reason you turn your hat backwards so it won't bump your scope when you draw aim. Okay? I got you. Clint, you're right. I mean, that's a reason. Okay? But you're not walking around with it that way. All right? And so this covers a multitude of things. And all you're attempting to do is you're attempting to help your kid know how to think. How to think. See, we tell our teachers, don't you teach my kid how to think. Or don't you teach my kid what to think. You're there to teach my kid how to think. Well, that's true. But we can't bring the kids home and now we teach them what to think. Because if we teach them what to think, that's just as dangerous as anybody else teaching them what to think. Because if you teach a kid what to think, as soon as they turn 18 and get away from you, they will begin to test the edges on everything they have been taught to think. And now they're going to do it without you around. There is no safety net. But if you teach a kid how to think, which requires tons of conversation, if you teach a kid how to think, then by the time they are getting away from you, they've already made a lot of the decisions that they will need to make, and they're prepared to make decisions that are knocking the legs out of a generation. You ever look at somebody and think, I have no idea how they talk. I have no idea what their background is. I have no idea what their degree is. But I would not hire them, not in a minute. Okay. Well, everybody else is like that too. And so the thing, and I could even do a less in your face version than this. We could do a please, thank you, absolutely, of course. But if anybody understands this part, they would understand this part. And the reason that I did these is so that this part explains. You're explaining. How many kids, how many boys do you know that stand up when a lady walks into the room? How many boys do you know that stand up when a lady walks to the table? Now, is anybody offended by that? No. But I'll tell you this. When my wife, we're in a restaurant and Polly would, go to the restroom or something and come back to the table, and those two little boys and their daddy would stand up, you would not believe how many people would go, that is the most amazing thing. And we're not doing it for that. We're doing it so that I can explain to them the benefits of being respectful, the benefits of being seen as covering all the basis, I mean, because this has to do with so many things. You can just fill in the blank on what that has to do. And it's also, I think, a pretty cool way of parenting, because you don't have to I've never really had we've never had any kind of issues with the boys and arguments about clothes or anything like that, because the couple of times that we saw them and stuff, we're like, I mean, I remember telling Austin one time, well, you have a business and you're in people's yards. He was doing the citrus management thing at the time. And, most of these people that have citrus trees in their yards, they're, of a certain age and a certain income group. And you dress however you want to, but there's a certain kind of look that people don't mind having in their yard. And there's a certain kind of look that somebody might call them and say, hey, there's a kid messing with your trees, or something. And so you have to decide, do you want more clients? Do you want less clients? Is there anything that you're doing? Is there any way that you look? Is there a way that you cut your hair? Is there a way you comb your hair or don't comb your hair? Is there anything you're doing that doesn't really matter? You don't have a reason for it, and yet somebody else may not like it. Now you say, are we supposed to live our lives for other people? No. And in fact, I'm saying live your life however you want to live it. But don't be surprised. I mean, when people, like Austin was 14 years old, and it was a disrespectful moment that I remember, but I don't remember another one. And we were in the kitchen, and Austin rolled his eyes at something I said, like, I know. And so, I looked at Polly, and you should have been there when I rolled my eyes at my dad like that one time. You should have been there to see my dad levitate across the room and land on me. But I was kind of ready for this, and so I said, hey, Austin, I don't think you want to say, I know, and roll your eyes at me or your mom or really at any adult or where any adult can see you. And let me tell you why. It's because that appears to be incredibly disrespectful. And you're not a disrespectful kid. And so I would hate for somebody to see you act that way and think that you are disrespectful, and then you wouldn't even really know it, but you would be treated by that person as somebody who's disrespectful, because there's a lot of things that disrespectful people get kind of cut out of, and they really never know, because they thought you were disrespectful, they would not give you the opportunity, or they would not hire you, or because they thought you were disrespectful, they would not invite you to such and such, or they would not let you date their daughter, or they would not, somebody said, hey, I'm thinking about hiring this kid. And I said, well, they would not give you a recommendation. And there's a ton of things that disrespectful people get cut out of that they have no idea why they were not chosen. They have no idea. And so you want to eliminate those things from your life. That's what you want to do. So I made these things so that people can put them in their businesses, can put them in their schools, can put them in the rec centers, because this is the bottom line. This don't mean nothing really. This is just a kind of an eye catcher or whatever. This is what means something. This is a competitive world. And if we're trying not to raise great kids, but we're trying to raise kids who become great adults, then in a competitive world, the kid who becomes an adult with great manners has an incredible advantage over the kid who becomes an adult with average manners. I mean, you think about how many times people get, somebody puts out a word about a job. Okay, the company gets 300 applications for the job. And the interns knock out 250 of them. So now they seriously look at 50 of them, and they check out the resumes. They check, and so they now they narrow it down to 10, or they send some stuff, and then people come back. Well, then now they narrow it down to 4. But the problem is, all 4 of these people, except for maybe gender and race, all 4 of these people are exactly alike. They have the same experience. They have the same educational background. They are the same age. They're the same everything. Okay, well, how do you choose? A lot of people take them out to dinner. Dave Ramsey does. Dave Ramsey takes them out to dinner with their spouse. I told Dave one time, I said, you want to never fail in this? Take them out to dinner with their spouse and their kids. You can fake a lot. You can't fake the kids. You watch those kids, you will learn what kind of respect is being taught in that house. You will learn what kind of leadership is happening in that house. You know, you can fake a lot, but you can't fake the kids. And so the thing is that they come down to 4. How do they choose? It is as thin a line as how somebody treats and Jan says, but Andy, my daughter always gets the job, and she's respectful because I did teach her. Hey, that's awesome, okay? That is awesome. And let's just hope that your daughter marries somebody that is exactly like her and doesn't convince her that some of the stuff that you taught her is just an opinion. Because at this point, she doesn't have any comeback. She doesn't have anything. I mean, that's his opinion. That's your opinion. And so, you know, I want to go with the odds. You know, I want to go with the possibilities. Because, you know, and I've seen come across there, you know, values are caught, not taught. And I agree. I agree with that. And so, but thinking to the bottom of the pool, Jan says she's engaged and I like him. Good. I hope you continue to like him. And so it's, I think we would be surprised at a lot of things that we raised our children to do, and they did, and they still do. But they get in over the situations, maybe they don't know why we did that, and they begin to overthink the room. But we've got these things if you want them, and they're and I just wanted you to know what's behind them, because if we can get that conversation going, you know, if we can get that conversation, people say all the time, man, are you seeing what I had somebody say to me? Remember about 20 years ago when kids were acting crazy, you know, on airplanes and nobody would do anything about it? And we said, wow, I wonder what those kids are going to be like when they grow up. And they say, well, now you watch the news, now you know what they turned out like. Well, somewhere along the line, you know, we have got to explain. Because if we want them to change, not just right in front of us, but for their own lives, for their good, you know, we want to explain. And I told Austin when he was 13, and Adam later as well, I said, look, I'm not always right. Okay? I'm not even going to tell you I'm always right. But you can't disagree that I want the best for you. I want the best for you. I love you so much. I want your life to be incredible. And so, because of that, knowing I am not always right, if you disagree with me on something I've decided that I really believe is important for you, I'm fine with you to disagree if you come and talk to me and say, Dad, I'm not getting this, okay? But just understand, we're going to talk. And we're going to talk until I convince you or you convince me. So that means we're going to have to explain what happens, what people think, how our actions change people's thoughts. We're going to have to explain. So this is the beginning of a conversation that people can have. And we've got, we start doing them. There's the Tennessee one, and Irene. There's the LSU one. Oh, excuse me, Irene. And so there's the best one. And let's see what else. There's on Wisconsin. Here's a Gator one, I think. And let's see. Here's the one from Auburn. Oh, it's upside down. I'm sorry. And what is this? This is Mississippi State. But actually, we can do these. We have the actual color charts, and so you give us a little time. You just tell us what team you want or what color you want, and we can custom do them for you if we don't have the things. But they're on the website, and you can order them. Okay. But I think I've got some friends already that are gonna. Hey, Gary, you need a BYU one. Yep, Tom would love that, wouldn't he? Yeah, we do need to get one. But I've got friends that have businesses, and they're going to put up an Alabama and an Auburn one, and I'm like, really? Okay, all right, So, but I think they will start a great conversation. Okay, you want to hear about the trade? We're going long. I'm sorry we're going so long, but I'm going to tell you about the trade. Okay, Jan Ritter, you want Rutgers? Yeah, we'll do Rutgers. The Scarlet Knights? Absolutely, we'll do Rutgers. So, okay, the trade. Now, when I left you last, ladies and gentlemen, I had 3/4 of a bottle of premium Code Blue buck urine. Yep, went from safety pin to Acorns to a trade for 3/4 of a bottle of buck urine. And the instructions even came in French. So evidently we are exporting that stuff to France. Yes, they send us croissants. We send them buck urine. So I had this 3/4 bottle of buck urine. So you know Jimmy Yeary, right? Jimmy Yeary, the songwriter, wrote "I Drive Your Truck," Cold Beer Conversations. He wrote the last two hits for Kenny Chesney, last two number ones for Kenny Chesney, tons of number ones, and so Jimmy and his oldest son Aiden, who I think Aiden is 9, came to hunt. Adam was out of town, and so they came to deer hunt with Austin and me. Now, me, I'm hunting on my camera most of the time. But, I mean, I love to eat them, no fat, twice the protein is beef. And, but, we've got it in the freezer, so no real need. But Aiden had not gotten his first buck. So that's a big deal. Jan, that's a big deal in the South. I'm just telling you, that is a regional thing probably. Maybe it's not, because in Wisconsin they're the same way. But, I told Jimmy, I said, hey, if you were living in New Jersey, Aiden would be bar mitzvahed. But, you live down here, so you got to kill a buck and get a little blood smeared on your face. So he had not gotten his first buck. So I told Aiden, I said, buddy, you're going to get the first buck because I got some pee of another buck, and it's going to really make the bucks mad. They're going to come looking for this other guy who's trying to find their girlfriends, and you just watch. So second afternoon, Aiden got a buck. It was a cool 6-point buck. He was so excited. Jimmy was so excited. Austin and I were there, and it was great. And so later that afternoon, I saw Aiden. He got him with a 7mm 08, and he had the shell casing from the bullet, right? And I said, "What you got there, buddy?" And he said, It's my shell that I got my deer with." And I said, "Oh, okay." I said, And I just had this idea. This is kind of a devious idea, kind of a mean thing to do to a kid, but I wasn't really doing it to him. It wouldn't last, and I knew that I was really doing it to his daddy anyway. So I said, Aiden, you know how that buck came in there and he was kind of mad and snorting around, and, remember I told you about that buck pee? He said, I do. And I pulled it out of my pocket and I said, here it is, baby. I said, now, there's more in here. And if you will let me have that shell casing. You got a picture of the shell casing? Okay. If you will let me have that shell casing, I will trade it to you for this. Now, this shell, this thing's gone. You already shot it. It's gone. It's not going to shoot again. Okay. But this, you could use this and bring some more deer in. He said, okay. So I made the trade with Aiden. And so I knew what was going to happen. Like 34 minutes later, we're in the kitchen. And Jimmy goes, hey, kind of hit me. He said, did you get Aiden's the shell from his first deer? I said, yeah, I did. This is a fair trade. Just kind of fair trade. And I gave him the buck pea. He said, I know. I said, he said, I was going to have something done with that. I said, oh, so you want it? He said, well, yeah. I said, well, I'm so sorry because it's mine now. I'm pretty proud of it that I have something like this. The kid's the first deer, I know you're his dad and everything, and you'd probably like to have it, but, I'm Uncle Andy, and I think I would like it. And Jimmy's just kind of looking at me. I said, now, you and I could make a trade if you wanted to. He said, okay. I said, I noticed in your guitar case, when you opened up the guitar case, a bunch of papers fell out. And when I was helping you open, pick them up and everything, I noticed this paper. Can you throw this up on screen, Matt? And Jimmy just had, Tim McGraw did a song called I Called Mama. And it was the biggest song Tim McGraw has ever had. Went right to number one. It's a number one hit, I Called Mama. And I had picked this up and I saw, and it had just like notes. It said, got a call from a buddy about a friend, and then he's got buddy crossed out and it says friend. So got a call from a friend about a friend. With some bad news no one ever wants to hear. Then he crossed out bad. He went, got a call from a friend about a friend with some news no one ever wants to hear. And then down here, it says, I thought of home. I grabbed my phone from my pocket. Over here, there's several different things. It says, so I pulled off at a Texaco, and then that got scratched out again. So I stopped off at a Texaco, bought a Slim Jim and a Coke, pulled out by the water just to watch that river flow. And over here is a place that says, grab my guitar from the back seat and wrote a song just for me. I sung it for the blue skies and some live oak trees. And I thought of home and I called Mama. And so these are the notes that he had. These are the notes he had for that song, I Called Mama. And I said, I guess you got all the other words somewhere else. And he said, oh yeah, that's just like scratch paper. I said, really? Scratch paper to you. The notes for an international #1 song for me. If you would sign it, if you would put Jimmy Yeary on it in Sharpie, I would trade you an empty shell casing I have. So now, baby, I don't know who I'm going to trade. No, I'm not putting it somewhere safe, Jan Ritter. I'm trading it. I mean, the whole deal is I got to trade up through the year. I started with a safety pin. At the end of the year, we're going to see where I am. And so between now and our next Blue Plate special, I'm gonna trade it for something, and somebody better come on with me. You know, somebody's gotta have something. But we're gonna see where we're going from a safety pin. But anyway, a little craftiness, a little imagination in there always helps. Hey, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you for joining me. Sorry we went long, but I guess if you're still here, you're not sorry, and the people who are sorry, they left anyway. So. Anyway, we had a good time. I had a good time with you. Hope you had a good time with me. See you soon. Bye-bye.